We're going to be reacting to more Mr. Ballen, and today's video is going to be interesting. It doesn't seem like one I normally react to. It's called The Ritual Will Kill You, Distressing Images. So, I'm in here, so keep that in mind. But I'm very curious to check this out. So, guys, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for new channel, share the content. It does mean a lot. Support me on Patreon. It's the best way to help make sure that this reaction channel continues to do what it does, especially to where I don't make a lot of money off the ad revenue because of copyright claims all over the place with copyright with the reaction channel. So, it does mean a lot if you go the extra mile. You can either go to my Patreon page or join as a member by clicking the join button in the description below. Means a lot. And if you guys want to go to the new if you guys want to go to the merch store and get the new merch, means a lot too. My face is on it. I'm freaking out. I have my signature beanie, which I'm not wearing right now, but you know, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and dive into Mr. Ballen.
There are many extreme religious practices and rituals out there, but there may be none more extreme than the Buddhist monk practice of Shokusenbutsu. This brutal ritual was created in 835 AD, and since then, over 1,000 years, countless monks have tried to do it. However, only 24 have ever actually been successful. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 3 phases of this ritual, and at the end, I'm going to show you pictures of what a successful Shokusenbutsu looks like. However, be warned, the images are very disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is counting something really important, start shouting out random numbers to mess them up. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
Cue the dancing. One of the most kick-ass openings. Simple yet effective. Metamorphosis.
Buddhists believe that human life is a constant cycle of birth, suffering, and then death. And then you're reborn, you suffer again, you die again, over and over and over again, forever.
Lovely.
Unless you're able to achieve enlightenment, or nirvana as it's called. However, no one really knows what nirvana actually is, what it looks like, what it feels like, where it is. Buddhists will say that the only way to actually understand nirvana is to experience it yourself. It's kind of like trying to describe to someone what chocolate tastes like. You can use any number of superlatives to describe the flavor, but until that person bites a piece of chocolate, they won't really fully understand it. And so, the goal of all Buddhists is to try to attain nirvana. And every day, hundreds of millions of Buddhists all around the world try very hard to do just that. But within Buddhism, there is a small subset of practitioners who have effectively dedicated their entire existence to attaining nirvana. And these people are the famous Buddhist monks. It is extremely difficult to become a Buddhist monk because the sacrifice is enormous. You have to leave your family, your friends, society, all your possessions, your name, your status, everything, and go live in a monastery, which is a kind of isolated place where monks live, and there you will spend your life living this very simple, very strict religious life where basically all you do is try to attain nirvana. As a result of this extreme lifestyle that Buddhist monks live, they have developed a reputation for being some of the most disciplined people on the planet. But even by Buddhist monk standards, their sacred ritual of Shokushinbutsu takes discipline to a whole nother level.
Let's get back to the story though. I'm sorry, Mr. Ballen.
Shokushinbutsu was created over 1,000 years ago up in the rugged mountains of northern Japan by a sect of Buddhists called the Shingon. And the Shingon believed that you could attain nirvana through physical punishment. And out of that idea was born the incredibly brutal Shokushinbutsu ritual. In short, Buddhist monks can choose to participate in this ritual, and if they successfully complete it, they might attain nirvana. But they won't know until the ritual is over. Meaning, it's kind of like a big gamble. Put yourself through absolute hell, and maybe you have this huge payoff, but maybe not. However, trying to attain nirvana through other means was really difficult. There was no other really clear pathways to nirvana, and so having this one distinct pathway, no matter how difficult it was really appealing. And so since its creation, hundreds and hundreds of Buddhist monks have tried it, and maybe less than 100 have actually successfully completed it, and then of that 100 or less, only 24 have actually attained nirvana through this process. The instructions for Sokushin Butsu are actually quite simple. There are 3 phases. Phase 1 is called Moku Jikagayo, which roughly means tree-eating training, and it's primarily focused on the monk's diet. It takes 1,000 days to complete this phase. However, most monks go much longer than 1,000 days. During this phase, monks will only eat byproducts of trees, things like seeds, nuts, tree bark, tree roots, pine needles, and they will collect all this food on their own. It should be noted, though, that some monks in this first phase will ingest small rocks. This is likely done because they are starving and they can't find food, and by eating the rocks take up space in their stomach and kind of curb their appetite a little bit. But because they don't actually digest the rocks, they're not technically breaking the phase 1 diet restrictions, and so they can continue on with this ritual. Additionally, during this first phase, the monks adhere to a very involved and strenuous physical exercise.
So, like, I'm not sure how the body, like, initially works. Obviously, I know how the basic stuff, but, like, can your stomach acid dissolve rocks, or is that shit just gonna come out? I feel like it's just gonna come out as a rock. That sounds absolutely, like, horrible, and I'm not trying to offend anybody who's doing this, obviously, and they're never gonna see this video anyways, but, like, that is just next level. And I couldn't even imagine. Like, I have a hard time like trying to do the vegetarian diet myself, but the fact that they're eating just like tree bark, seeds, and stuff like that, that's mind blowing to me.
Exercise routine, and then whenever they're not foraging for food or exercising, they are meditating. At the end of the 1,000th day of phase 1, if the monk has survived, because sometimes phase 1 monks do die mostly from starvation, it is up to them if they are ready to move on to phase 2. This decision ultimately comes down to whether or not, 1, the monk actually adhered to the strict rules of phase 1, something really only that monk would know, and then 2, whether or not the monk actually believes they are spiritually ready to move on to phase 2. Phase 2 is much shorter than
something
phase
you gotta
1,
feel out,
but it is significantly more challenging. And so the monks going into phase 2, they really need to kind of bring their A game and have no second thoughts. They need to be fully committed to phase 2 in order to successfully complete it. For reference, most of the 24 monks who successfully attained nirvana through this ritual repeated phase 1, 2, or even 3 times just to make sure they really were ready. Phase 2 is called Neojo, and it roughly translates to deep meditation. But a better way to think about what this phase entails is these monks need to enter into a sort of trance-like state, almost like an out-of-body experience, because what they're going to go through in this phase is so physically uncomfortable that unless you're able to kind of detach mentally, there's just no way to go through with it. And so during the second phase, the monks will sit down and meditate, basically.
That is some buildup. I'm very much curious to know what the third step is in this process. Oh my gosh, I'm
constantly for 100
I think I know what it is,
days.
But still.
And during that time, they don't eat any more tree byproducts or rocks. Instead, they have a liquid diet. They drink a little bit of salt water, and they drink a lot of a very particular kind of tea. The tea is made from Toxicodendron verniculum tree bark, which contains the same toxin in poison ivy. Meaning, for phase 2, you basically just sit alone by yourself for 100 days while simultaneously drinking a poisonous tea that causes a massive allergic reaction inside of your throat and stomach that causes an intense itching sensation inside of you that you can't.
I'm a very much, when I listen to these stories, I intentionally put myself in these situations. I could not imagine what that must have felt like. The feeling of poison ivy throughout your entire like body, like inside an eternal itch. Like that is just horrifying to me. Oh my gosh. I don't even like Mr. Ballin explaining it because the way he explains it makes me like really feel it.
Cannot physically itch. Also, this poisonous tea gives you explosive diarrhea and it makes you vomit a lot. If
That's
you somehow
perfect.
manage to survive all 100 days of phase 2, and unfortunately many monks don't, you automatically move on to phase 3. Unlike phase 1, phase 2 never gets repeated, most likely because it almost
It's
certainly
just
would
painful.
be fatal to do so.
Yeah.
Phase 3 is either the easiest or the hardest part of the Sokushinbutsu ritual, depending on how you look at it. It doesn't have a name like the other two phases, perhaps because so few people make it to this part of the ritual, but regardless, Phase 3 definitely has a strict set of rules like the other two phases. The Phase 3 monk has a small pine box that has no windows built just for them. It needs to be big enough that they can sit inside of it in the lotus pose, which is how they typically sit when they're meditating. And then once it's all built, the monk climbs into this box. They put a lid over the top of it, but they put a bamboo shoot, like a bamboo pole,
For
through
air.
the cover of this box. So there is a breathing tube for this monk inside of this box. And then they lower the monk inside of the small
Don't tell me
pine
to put him
box
underground.
10 feet into this hole in the ground.
And
then
bury
once
him.
they ensure the bamboo pole is going to be above ground so they can breathe, they fill the hole in with charcoal. Before we cover what happens
Charcoal.
next in
Wow.
phase 3, you need some context about what this ritual is actually doing to the monks performing it. Phase 1.
First off, I find this extremely hard because I am very claustrophobic. I would not be able to. I couldn't even get past the first phase, let alone the second one, and now the third one being underground. Hell no. This is a big no for me.
Tree eating training serves two purposes. The first is it's kind of like a big gut check. It really shows who wants to do this ritual and who doesn't.
You are
It's kinda
tough,
like
yeah.
if
You're
you
really
can't
tough.
complete phase 1, you certainly can't complete phase 2 or phase 3. So it's like a filter. It weeds out the weak monks.
Right.
The second purpose
Gotcha.
of phase 1 is to literally shrink the monk. The tree eating diet combined with the constant physical exercise removes all of their body fat and a lot of their muscle, and so they're incredibly lean by the end of phase 1. And this will be significant when we talk about the end of phase 3. Phase 2, deep meditation phase, serves two purposes as well. The first purpose is that it puts the monk into that trance-like state, and then the second purpose it serves is the toxin inside of this poisonous tea kills off all of the naturally occurring bacteria and parasites inside of the monk. Again, that will become significant when we get to the end of phase 3. Speaking of which, so in phase 3, the monk is put in their box, they're lowered 10 feet into the ground,
Yeah.
the breathing bamboo chute is installed,
10 feet.
the charcoal is dumped on top of them, and then for several days, the third phase monk will sit in total darkness and meditate constantly, and each day, they have a bell down there with them, they ring the bell. That's the only thing they have to do besides meditate. And above ground, there is a team of monks that are supporting this ritual, and they're listening for that bell. And the first day they don't hear the bell, it means the monk in the box has completed the ritual, and now it is time to see if they have attained nirvana. In Buddhism, someone whose body does not decay, aka a mummy, is someone who has cheated death. And to cheat death is to remove yourself from the vicious human life cycle of birth, suffering, death, repeat. Meaning, becoming a mummy is a way to attain nirvana. And Sokushinbutsu is a self-mummification ritual. Phase 1 shrinks the monk's body, it removes their fat and muscle, it also
Holy
removes
shit.
a lot of moisture inside of their body, and their diet also withholds nutrients to all of the bacteria and parasites that
it hurts me to
naturally
think
occur
about.
inside of their bodies. And so those bacteria and parasites that normally would play a big role in helping decompose your body after death begin to die off. And so the cumulative effect of phase 1 on these monks is that if they were to die at the end of phase phase 1, their decomposition would be drastically slowed. It wouldn't be mummy status, but it would be close. The phase 2 poisonous tea, that toxin that they're drinking, that kills off the remainder of the bacteria and parasites that did not die during phase 1. Also, all the vomiting and diarrhea completely dehydrates them, which aids in slowing down decomposition after death. Finally, phase 3 is the death phase. The monk goes into their tomb, they're buried underground, and they ring that bell each day to tell the people on the ground that they are still alive. And then when the bell stops ringing, it means the monk in the box is dead. At which point, the crew on the ground removes the bamboo breathing pole and then lets the body sit in the box underground for another 1,000 days. And then after 1,000 days, they pull the box up, they lift the lid off, and if there is little to no signs of decay on their body, it means the self-mummification ritual worked, they're a mummy, they've attained nirvana, and now their body is holy. And so they're brought out of the box, they're dressed in robes, they're placed in the monasteries, and they are worshipped. As for the unlucky monks who get to the end of Sokushin Butsu, but are found to be decomposing inside of their box when they're brought back up again, they're just placed back inside of their pine box and buried, and they are not worshipped. Sokushin Butsu was made illegal in Japan in the late 19th century, but we know monks continued to practice it into the 20th century, and in theory, today, monks still might practice it in secret. So that's going to do it. If you got something...
I got a lot to say. Again, I don't say what I'm about to say in any sort of disrespect. The people who did these sort of things have so much resolve, and regardless of what you think of it, the courage that went into what they personally believed in was absolutely off the chains. I would never have the guts to do something like this, ever. Not once. Even after the first phase, if they were to explain that to me, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to have to go on a diet and eat only this, I'd be like, there is no way. I'm just going to have to walk away right now. There's no way. So, like, people who did these things, the amount of courage and the guts and the fiery passion they had for what they were doing behind them was insane. I'm not going to try to... I don't want to disrespect them at all, but that was insane. That was insane, and I almost didn't even know what to say, because, like, the fact that they put themselves through these sort of things, the fact that anybody could put themselves through that sort of pain and suffering just to get what they believed was enlightenment or nirvana is just, wow. Like, plain and simply, just put across the screen, wow. That was a video. That was a video for sure. Comment down below, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I will do more Mr. Ballin reactions. It's up to you guys, though. Get this video up to 50 likes. Really means a lot. It lets me know that you want to see another reaction ASAP, and I will post more as soon as possible. So, guys, keep it retro, and do take care.